We keep hearing about recession, but when it's constantly in our face through television, radio, advertising, can that make it worse? Can we really think ourselves into a worse place than we're actually at? Kids' faces as they're watching their Lego teams compete. What brings it out in these kids and hides the math and the science? Tune into the K2 News this Thursday at 10 o'clock, where I'll analyze our growth and take a look and see how what we already have is holding up. It's no secret gas prices have been steadily on the rise. Consumers are feeling the crunch as they try and fill up their own personal vehicles. But it becomes a whole different ballgame when you're responsible for filling up an entire fleet. As Mary has made the trip for her medical treatment in the past, it hasn't been the most comfortable of journeys. I know you were talking about earlier, your knees were starting to swell up and couldn't listen to her own music either. This one, little bit different scenario here. You got your own tunes here, and how excited are you to bump your tunes when you're going to?
I'm very excited. I'll be able to bump my tunes going down the road.
This year's state agency budget cuts are going to be closer to 10% instead of 5%, according to the governor. Friedenthal says next month he plans to start meeting with each agency about where they can reduce spending and hopes to have all of their recommendations for areas to cut by June. The governor says making cuts has never been easy, but because of the times we're in, they're necessary.
Glen Rock can cook like that at Nationals. I'd say they have a great chance of bringing home the gold.
Well, I'm guessing there weren't many, but I'm a little disappointed you didn't bring me any leftovers. Thank you, Brianna.
I'll have the rest of your forecast coming up.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Looked like maybe even a little bit of blowing snow out there as well,
yes,
just behind Kyle.
Cold.
All right, Kyle, get in here and get some cocoa.
Then the Papa Storm will be coming through.
Is that a correct meteorological term?
That is not a meteor. Do not quote me. That is...
From Kelly Walsh High School to the University of Wyoming to the International Space Station, one Casper native is back in town sharing her work with NASA and her love of our country's space projects.
Objections to the TARP bill was the lack of accountability.
Well, as you speak of the TARP bill, kind of that gets more into our banking system. And President Obama spoke tonight. He said that credit is the lifeblood of our country. Some agree with that and some don't, but it is a big part of our financial system. He spoke about holding banks responsible and, if necessary, jumping in, placing regulations and tweaking things as needed from the federal government standpoint. Are you in favor of federal regulation of the banking system, or is there another route that we should be taking?
They got it wrong.
But at the same time, you know, you're talking about the Endangered Species Act and back in the 90s introducing a bunch of wolves into Yellowstone. Is it not a little counterproductive, though, in taking it off the list and maybe trying to get those numbers down after we worked so hard to get those numbers back up?
You heard a boom and it just kind of shook the ground a little bit.
Loud noises aren't uncommon for Toby, who lives near railroad tracks, but this one ended up being a little different.
It kept going about 4 times, and my sister-in-law works over at Lathrop's, and she called and says there's black smoke over there by you guys. She thought it might have been the natural gas processing plant over here. She just says you better get up and see what's going on. We looked out and seen those fleshies over there.
Not a quarter of a mile from Toby's home, a local oil company was on fire. The fire was burning pretty close to these tanks. Also pretty close to these tanks is the Brookhurst subdivision just to the northeast of Link Oil Company. As you see over my shoulder, these houses are pretty close to the facility.
You could see lots of smoke, but you couldn't see flame until they opened the doors, and then flame was coming out there.
Response teams arrived just before 10 in the morning. While the situation was threatening, there were some things playing to the fire crew's favor.
The building is surrounded by a very large dirt parking lot, so that helped give us a buffer zone.
Flames were put out around noon, but Toby isn't sure if he's out of danger's way.
There's a lot of fuel over there, and even though the wind's blowing that way, you know, that fuel could blow, and if it got one of those big tanks, it could blow fuel this far.
That same wind helped keep the flames away from Toby's home and helped him stay worry-free. He went on with his day enjoying the best seat in the house. From Casper, I'm Matt Stafford, reporting for K2 News. 2 weeks ago, Wyoming's largest primary care medical practice announced it was no longer going to care for patients covered by Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, and Blue Cross and Blue Shield. The reason? These are the 4 lowest paying insurance providers for Western Medical Associates.
I've got to put things in line and run this like a business.
Medicare, Medicaid, and TRICARE are government-run health plans. The announcement was not well received.
I know people right across the street that need medication, everything else.
They don't want to pay for nothing. The elderly works all their tail off.
CMS and the Medica carrier They have to start talking on why they want to be the lowest in Wyoming and beat up doctors.
Western Medical now says it will continue to see patients covered by both Medicare and TRICARE, a program that covers both active and veteran members of the military and their families. Blavelt is hitting the road trying to generate support for higher reimbursement rates from Medicare. Now this is being well received.
And I have gotten a letter here, so I will be writing our representatives again, you know, and see what else we can do.
I'm glad that someone is working on it.
I'm very proactive, and I don't believe by sitting around and just letting people beat up on you is the thing to do.
Blavelt says Western Medical does not want to turn anyone away. The initial announcement to stop accepting patients with the lowest paying coverage was simply a business decision. Blavelt is currently talking with the remaining 2 providers, hoping to work out a compromise on reimbursements. It's a game of tug-of-war for doctors here in Wyoming as well as the rest of the country. Now, do they treat more patients with higher reimbursing private health care plans for profitability, or should they treat everyone, which could have an ill effect on their bottom line? Matt Stafford, ABC News, Casper, Wyoming. Thanks for staying with us, everyone. Pretty warm today here. We're hitting those 90s, 92 right now here in Casper, and really nice as far as the skies were concerned. Yesterday it was looking like we might have some thunderstorms developing later on in the afternoon, but now it's looking more like it's going to stay clear in Casper and not a lot of precipitation here. However, we are getting some around the state that we're keeping our eyes on, but light winds only getting to about 5 miles per hour and still really warm in our area. All low 90s for lower elevations, getting up to about 80 degrees on Casper Mountain. So still warm up there, but not as warm in the lower elevations. That's about what we're seeing out here in the rest of the state. A lot of 90s out there, but you get down in southeastern Wyoming, pretty chilly. 65 in Laramie, 73 in Cheyenne, 78 in Torrington. Getting some colder temperatures over there. On the western side of the state, not quite getting down to the 60s. We've got some 80s out there. A few 90s up here in north central Wyoming and 79 in Yellowstone. Really nice weekend to get out there and see Yellowstone if this was your weekend to make it. But here's our satellite radar. We've got a little bit of scattered showers out there on that side down by Rock Springs. There's a big collection of precipitation. And then also down here by Laramie and Cheyenne, we've seen the possibility for some thunderstorms building up. However, those are likely not going to really develop until they get out of the state. So not a lot to worry about as far as that's concerned. Here's what we've been looking at, though. This line of storms has been developing all the way from down here in Casper all the way down south of Colorado. So pretty big system and still continuing to grow. We'll keep our eyes on it. We need it, but people like dry weather, too. They like to get out and have some fun.
I like getting out and having some fun.
Really?
I do. I like fun.
Good.
Fun's good.
Fun is good. And time to take a look at the temperatures. We have 60s out here on the western border, 63 folks in Jackson, 78 in Worland. Things are looking good. My aim is getting a lot better. I went home and played some duck hunt, and I'm getting really good at this. But 59 right here in Casper, 75 in Torrington, Cheyenne at 69 degrees, folks, right down there. But things are looking pretty nice. I told you probably way too many temperatures, but that's just so much fun. You would have a lot of fun doing it, too, if you were up here. Now, here's a story that'll have parents of teenagers cringing. A Cheyenne father smashed his teenage daughter's cell phone with a hammer after she sent or received about 20,000 text messages in a month. The Christopherson family's phone plan with Verizon didn't include texting, and the phone company charged them for each incoming and outgoing text. Greg and Jaylene Christopherson thought texting had been disabled. They only learned their 13-year-old daughter, Dina, was doing so much of it when they received a phone bill for more than $4,750. The family says Verizon has been willing to knock the bill down to a reasonable level.
I wonder what it would be if you took 20,000 divided by 30 days, how many text messages that is in a day?
I have no idea, but she just must have some blisters on her thumbs from just texting like crazy.
Goodness.
I don't know.
It's crazy.
All right, folks, that'll do it for us. Corey and I and the Yellow Ties will be back here tomorrow.
Have a great night. I like